Commodity Week airs Saturdays at 8:30 a.m. Remember the time change for the daily closing market report on WHOW at our new time, 5:06 p.m. weekdays.
You're listening to The Morning Show on the Big 1520 across Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Welcome into the WHOW Morning Show. I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today, and a trio of great guests in studio with us today. We've got Joey Long, who is the director of the DeWitt County Museum, in studio with us, and Mr. John Warner and Edith Brady-Lunny. And today we are going to get an update on the aviation exhibit that Joey and Mr. Warner introduced to us maybe a month or so ago, and we're going to talk about where they stand in this process. Edith, we welcome her into the discussion today and talking about her journalism experience and implementing that into this process. Joey, I want to start with you. Swing that mic over to you. How is this aviation exhibit process going? Give us an update, and I guess let's start with what is it, and give us an update on how it's going.
All right. Well, the title of the exhibit pretty much tells it all. Mm-hmm. It's Prairie Flyers, A Century of Aviation History in DeWitt County. And what a history it is. Mm-hmm. I think that when the idea came to develop and create this exhibit, we knew that, there would be stories out there and quite a bit to tell, quite a bit to share. But just in the time that we've been, on the ground working on this, actively collecting the stories and whatnot, we've had so many stories come in, and we're really happy about that. Mm-hmm. We're happy to have more, mm-hmm. but this has really taken off beyond what I think any of us really expected when we started this project. So we're really mm-hmm. happy about that, mm-hmm. and just want to keep the momentum going. And we thought it'd be nice to come in today and just update people on how that project is moving forward. Mm-hmm. One interesting thing is we didn't go into this thinking it will be this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. We went into it knowing that we would design the exhibit based on what came to us. So, mm-hmm. We are open to things, and this is growing and evolving, mm-hmm. and it's just becoming a wonderful story.
Sure.
So we would like to kind of catch people up, mm-hmm. and remind everyone to keep those great stories and artifacts coming. Mm-hmm. And we're just really happy to share this good news today.
Sure. Well, I must confess, I am not on Facebook. So when you put something out, asking for artifacts or stories or anything of that nature, I don't see the response. But I'll tell you what, I drove by several weeks ago, and your promotion of the exhibit at the corner of Woodlawn and Center Street is fantastic. I think that's getting people very excited about this. But what's the response been like, Joey, social media? And we'll bring in Edith here in a moment to talk about the stories that she's collected. But what is the response like, through those avenues of that promotional piece at the front of the museum, social media, all of that?
It's been a great response. So, obviously, as you said, Seth, the sign set up there at the corner of Center and Woodlawn Street there at the museum has drawn a great deal of attention and made people really excited about it. Mm-hmm. You can't look at that graphic and not be excited about what's coming.
Totally.
And that is that image was created by Dennis, who is working on designing. Dennis Hambucken, mm-hmm. who is designing the exhibit. And
how is Dennis, by the way? He doing good?
Dennis is doing great.
Great.
We expect to have him here next month.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I was hoping he'd be in, but missed him this morning. Anyway, Joy, I'm sorry. I interrupted you there.
That's fine. So that certainly shows you, what kind of talent we have with mm-hmm. us. And then as far as Facebook, the Facebook page that we created has grown and grown. A lot of enthusiastic comments. That's one way that people have, reached out to us to tell us their stories. For mm-hmm. example, just yesterday through Facebook, I had a lady say, I thought about this, my uncle and his contribution, to aviation and his ties to DeWitt County. And I just couldn't let him not be mentioned. I just had to share his story and have mm-hmm. him included in this exhibit. And so, they're reaching out through social media, calling the museum, mm-hmm. stopping by the museum. sending an email, just, all different ways, but we're getting the word out there and we're getting a fantastic response.
Awesome. Mr. Warner, I'd like to get your response to, this whole thing and, how you feel. Like, is this what you expected? Where do you stand, kind of emotionally with all this?
Well, I would say on behalf of all of us, we're tickled and we want to say to everyone in the county, thank you very much. And please, let's all continue to work together and keep going. We're delighted. We all suspected that there were wonderful stories and artifacts in the county, and more stories have come to the surface, and we've learned more than we could possibly have imagined. And we think that the county is really going to be tickled by what we get to see in the museum next
I
year.
would venture a guess that there's going to be interest in this beyond the county, though. There's, because I just feel like, aviation, those stories of, from the various wars and things like people are drawn to those things. I think the fact that it's DeWitt County specific is not going to limit this popularity.
Yes, you're right. Aviation touches everything. And, the flights can take off from DeWitt County or land in DeWitt County, but aviation goes everywhere. And so it brings the world to the county and the county to the world.
Sure. Well, Edith, let's introduce you to this conversation. What has been your role? How did you come to be a part of this project?
Well, I really am fortunate because I think I have the best job in all this effort.
I totally agree.
I really do.
Yeah.
I scored with that. So I am going out and actually talking with people, visiting them around their dining room tables and collecting their stories of aviation. And some of these stories I'm sure have not been shared maybe beyond their closest relatives. So for a lot of people, they're going to be hearing these for the first time. And it's the first time some of them are actually telling them in this way, that someone has sat down and asked them a series of questions and to explain, for example, how they went to Vietnam at 19 and how they were trained as a helicopter pilot. And not just how you survived that, but how did that help you grow as an individual? And then you came back to your farm and carried on your life.
Yeah.
Stories like that. A woman whose dad was a TWA pilot. What was that like growing up, having your dad in that field? So, I mean, we've collected some just amazing stories. Obviously, we may not get personally to all of these stories to be collected. So we really want to encourage people to submit their stories to us as well. You can sit down and write a few paragraphs about your experience. Go ahead and do that. And if you have photographs or you have any artifacts, it is amazing to me what people have retained over the years. They still have their flight jackets and their helmets and a cardboard box with 50 medals from their service that they haven't looked at since we said, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Then they go to the closet and get them out with
and they're happy to do so, right?
And they're very humble about it. It's not a
braggadocious thing. Yeah.
Not at all. And these are things that I can tell from talking with people they haven't thought about for a long time. So we're just going to have a wonderful collection of those stories that people can see through the exhibit, and then put together some kind of a publication of those stories so that we can have those for the future as well.
Sure. Again, our guest in studio, Joey Long, is the director of the DeWitt County Museum. We're talking about, and Joey, forgive me if I get this wrong, a century of aviation in DeWitt County. I think I'm getting that right. I hope I am. Along with Mr. John Warner and Edith Brady-Lunny, a part of this project as well. Forgive me, friends. I want to have kind of a squirrel moment. Something Edith said I'm curious about, and I was actually wondering this, as in preparing for this interview. She mentioned, like there's so many stories and you can't get to them all, and there's artifacts and there's pictures. Mr. Warner, do you anticipate like this? Have you thought about this being something that you could do over again in future years in a different way? How about that?
Well, certainly that's an opportunity that this may offer, and that will be a decision for the museum board and the homestead to make at large. But the way stories are coming in, And the way we can build this, certainly we're anticipating a publication of some magnitude that will include photos of exhibit artifacts, photos from period aviators, and these individual stories. So people here in the county will be able to see this exhibit and see displays concerning people that they know right here in the area. And then they're going to have a written record of the experiences that their friends have and neighbors have had by way of aviation here in the county.
Sure, absolutely. Edith, how did you come to be a part of this project? Because I feel like it's a great fit, your journalism experience to tell these stories.
Well, I was lucky enough to be invited to join the crew. So I literally just got a phone call from Joey and talked with John. And then I went and met with the two of them and with Dennis. And I mean, I was just struck at what I could see as potential for this, for our community, for our county, to have this kind of, John's knowledge of aviation, Joey's talent as a museum director, and then bring Dennis Hambuchen into it, a recognized author, graphic artist, exhibit designer, to have those things come together in this county is just really a remarkable thing, the likes of which we've never had in DeWitt County and in the Clinton area before.
Next time I need to reserve an hour with you guys, not just 30 minutes. I look at the clock. Let's take a time out, friends. Come back with some more. Again, Joey Long is the director of the DeWitt County Museum. We are talking this morning about their coming exhibit this year, Aviation, a Century of Aviation in DeWitt County. I should say, is it Prairie Flyers, a Century of Aviation in DeWitt County? I knew I'd get it eventually, guys. I apologize for that. But we'll come back with them. John Warner, Edith, Brady-Lunny with us as well, a part of the project today on WHOW.
Happy New Year from Love It Once More Thrift Store in Clinton. To help you start your year off on the right step, we have all men's, women's, and children's shoes and boots on sale for 10% off. This is Connie, and I'll see you in 2022. Check out our Facebook page or DeWittDailyNews.com.
Hi, this is Ryan Utterback with Utterback Real Estate.
The price of beans are up.
Dalton, where you at?
Well, you asked me to hit the fields and check the market prices.
I meant the housing market prices, and that's why you're the other Ryan.
Check out the latest on the housing market by clicking the Utterback Real Estate icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
January is National Blood Donor Month, and Dunker Electric Supply and Lighting Center in Decatur reminds listeners, if your health permits, please give blood now and as often as you can. Remember, the average shelf life of blood is only 42 days. In order to meet the increasing demand for blood in our community, please be a hero and give the gift of life. Roll up your sleeve and donate blood today. This message from Dunker Electric Supply and Lighting Center in Decatur. Visit online at dunkerelectric.com.
Meet FarmOp Capital, the lender who has reinvented operating loans by basing them on your ability to produce, not how much land you own. They offer unique terms, including early access to funds that give you the power of cash buying and the ability to market your crop when the time is right. Start exploring all the what-ifs you've ever imagined for your business at farmopcapital.com today.
The WHOW Morning Show is now video streamed live on the WHOW WEZC DeWittDailyNews.com Facebook page and on the new WHOW TV YouTube channel. Watch Morning Show host Seth Lawrence interview guests live, as well as watch archived video podcasts of any interview you missed. Whether on Facebook or YouTube, we're providing two more ways that Central Illinois' local news station, WHOW, delivers compelling content for you.
This is The Morning Show on 92.3 FM in DeWitt County WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence, and in studio with me is Joey Long. She's the director of the DeWitt County Museum, and again today we're talking about Prairie Flyers, a century of aviation in DeWitt County. Joey and Mr. John Warner introduced this to us a few months ago now about this coming exhibit in 2022 to the museum, and Edith Brady-Lunny joins us in studio, and she's been collecting the stories and helping in this effort to get that information from the folks that are coming forward with their stories. And yeah, Mr. Warner, you brought up such a good point in the break, and I've thought this for many years, and I think it's worth just kind of pointing out. I think you called it a repository. The DeWitt County Museum is a repository of history in our community. How about that?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We so often think of the Homestead Museum as the early settlement history and early attorney C.H. Moore and so forth. And that's a very important part of our history. But it is a county museum, and it is a repository of all the different sorts of stories and histories that have grown out of this county. Now, it just happens that this time around, we're telling the story of aviation, but we could have an exhibit about early days of farming in the county. The day Lincoln came to town and gave the speech about fooling all of the people all of the time. There are just a variety of stories, and the Homestead, the museum, is the saving spot for these stories and the sharing point for these stories and the place to go listen and learn and find out about these stories.
And I would also add, it's the place where, when you put out a call like this exhibit, when you put out a call for, the homes, Joey, the home exhibit you're talking about, and the list goes on and on and on over the years. When you put out a call for that, the Homestead and Museum is kind of the place where you take those things and you entrust those things. And Joey, you do such a great job of connecting all the dots and bringing those things together.
Right. It's nice to know that we have a place like this. I like to think of the museum as the keepers of the history. And we also often can provide the answers. A couple of weeks ago, I had a girl come in. She had found an old photograph in a flea market or somewhere of the courthouse. And she said, well, I have this photograph. I know it's our courthouse, but it doesn't look in the way that I remember it. I don't understand what this is that I'm seeing up on the roof. And I said, well, come with me. And I took her down to the basement and introduced her to one of the ladies, the only lady left that once graced the top of the courthouse. If someone comes in, she obviously has an interest in this and is looking for an answer, right? And I'm just happy that people know that they can come to the C.H. Moore Homestead DeWitt County Museum and get those answers. We also have people who have artifacts to donate, looking for a good home, and they know that they can bring it to us. We will care for it well, and it will be there for a very long time. Right.
Yeah. Joey, can you speak to that, desire to preserve local history, not just through the homestead, but people holding on to these things and continuing to pass them along and share them? What does that mean for you? And just to know that that's out there, I guess. How about that? Edith, if you want to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, I think it is important for people, to preserve that history. But I mean, first of all, they have to know what it is, and I think the museum is just that great source of information on our local history. It's something that I think we just completely take for granted, and being able to have that site that's so well maintained and it's continually updated with new information. It's not a static place for historic information, and I think that's what makes it really one of the gems of DeWitt County.
Sure. Well, in our final moments together, did I miss anything you guys wanted to talk about this morning? Edith, John, Joey, did I miss anything that you guys wanted to come? I want to ask you, Edith, as you collect these stories, what are some interesting things that have stood out to you in the early, goings of this project?
Well, I think just the number of people in some of the smaller communities who have been involved in aviation. We think of Wapella, of course, we think of the Thorpe family and Ernest Thorpe, who was a World War II pilot, who was captured and was a POW. But Ernest actually was inspired by Lindbergh to fly, and then went on to fly. Had members of his family who flew, used aviation in their farming business, But one of the most, I think, interesting stories was the story of Gordon Hall, who was a very young pilot in World War II who died in a crash in Italy. I visited with his family, and they bring out 3 binders full of materials.
No kidding.
Including the telegram that came to the family explaining that he had died.
Oh, wow.
The letters his mother wrote for 20 years to the Pentagon seeking answers for why that plane went down.
Really?
So people have, really kept their history. And I think when people see these actual items up close and personal, it's really going to tell some stories.
Wow. Joey, how do folks, what are you looking for now? Is there anything specific? How do folks get, stories, artifacts, pictures, whatever to you? How about
We're
those
looking
things?
for all of it. Stories, artifacts, pictures, all of it. And I wouldn't want anyone to think that their one little object was too small or insignificant to share with us. Every artifact, every object, every photograph has a story behind it, and we would like to include that if we can.
Sure. I apologize. I do have to let you guys go here momentarily. Very quickly, how do folks get those things to you, Joey?
They can give us a call at the museum. That's 217-935-6066. They can send us an email at chmore.homestead@gmail.com, or they can reach out through Facebook.
Fantastic, guys. Great stuff. Like I said, next time I need to block out an hour. Joey Long, John Warner, Edith Brady-Lunny, Prairie Aviators, a century of flying in DeWitt County. I know I botched that name, but that is the project. Seek it out on Facebook. Network News is now
in Washington.